Danielle, how did you find carnivore?
It started with getting sick. I I ended up in the hospital with really bad abdominal pain a couple years ago, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And I had been in other groups, and I just was thinking, let me just say, I had been sick for a few years, like chronic fatigue sick, and didn't know what was wrong. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia because that's their easy diagnosis. And then I ended up in the hospital. And I just wasn't getting any help from a regular doctor. So I decided to go to a functional medicine doctor. And before that, back in 2018-19, I had been keto. And at that time, a lot of people were switching to carnivore. So I knew about carnivore in the back of my mind. I just never pictured me being carnivore. Because when I did keto, I did vegetarian keto. I was a vegetarian at the time. Anyway, so I end up in the hospital. Something's wrong. I'm having this bad abdominal pain. And then one day I look in the mirror after I ate and my whole face was flushed. And I thought, maybe this is a histamine reaction. So I went to a functional medicine doctor, gave them all my history. They ran a bunch of tests, diagnosed me with metabolic syndrome, Hashimoto's, lupus, and there was one more, and I never remember what it was. But anyway, it would they had me do an elimination diet because in the back of my mind I had remembered carnivore, and the only thing that wasn't affecting me at that time was when I would eat steak. I went, I'm just going to go full carnivore. So that's what started it. And then I stayed with them for like a year, doing tests every 3 months, and my I don't have any lupus antibodies after that. My Hashimoto's antibodies were very low by the time I was done with them. And my blood sugars, all that stuff, all the numbers were back into their range, like better than the normal range. I forget what they call it, but my thyroid numbers, everything was back in the range. So I thought, now that I'm on carnivore, I'm afraid to eat anything else sometimes anyway. And basically using that as an elimination diet because they wanted me to reintroduce stuff. So I would try a little bit here and there, but using the elimination diet as carnivore, I noticed that if I ate nuts, my intestines hurt. Um, when I would eat dairy, I can't have dairy. My muscles would burn. So all these fibromyalgia symptoms were really coming from my food. And I could pick out which food they were coming from at that point because if I only introduce one and I feel what it does to me, then I know what it is. Even now, sometimes I'll try a sauce and it'll affect me. And I think it's the vinegar in the sauce, but I get swollen a little bit, I get rashes. So it really came from being sick for, I think it was almost 6 years, being in bed, sleeping hours and hours and hours every day, being miserable, nerve pain. I had peripheral neuropathy, the fibromyalgia, all that stuff was diagnosed, but they never did any digging. I didn't even know about Hashimoto's.
Right.
Not one time did my doctor say, maybe we should look into autoimmune. Never. So that's what did it. I knew it was available, and then once I started doing it, I went to just straight bacon, eggs, and steak. That's all I eat. Every day for breakfast, bacon and eggs. Every night for dinner, steak. Sometimes, um, like tonight, I'm gonna have brisket, but for the most part, it's bacon, eggs, and steak, and that's just what I eat every day.
That's all. So, how long has it been now?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And um, so, I mean, you must be feeling completely different to 2.5 years ago when you got all these diagnoses.
Right. So before I got diagnosed, the fatigue was so bad. Like me and my husband had retired. We were traveling around in a motorhome and just driving during the day. By the time we were done, I was out. So sightseeing and stuff, I really wasn't doing. I was sleeping in the motorhome. And then we had moved to another state. And once we moved here, we got moved. Actually, we drove here and it took 3 days. And I had to drive and pull a trailer, and my husband drove and pulled the trailer. And he wasn't sure I would make it. So he was looking at storage places along the way to leave my vehicle in case we had, he had to finish the drive and then he would go back and get it. That's how bad I was. And so I do carnivore, I get better. And now we have an 8-month-old grandson, and we babysit him 5 days a week. And for me to be able to keep up with him, that would have never happened before. Like when I get up in the morning now, I'm up until I go to bed at night. No more naps during the day, no more. Before I used to wake up and I would be doing something, and all I could think of is, when can I go back to bed? Or I would get up for a couple hours, do a few things, take a nap, do something else, take a nap. Now I sleep good at night. I wake up in the morning, and some days we're watching him 12 hours a day. And to be able to keep up with that, I would have never been able to do that. So definitely there's a difference in my energy. There's a difference in the way my body feels. I don't have nerve pain. I don't have muscle burning. Um, there was a ton of symptoms. I just can't remember them all anymore. But those were the main ones. So no fatigue, no burning muscles, no nerve pain. I mean, I would have been happy at half of what I am now, just because it was so bad back then. So I'm happy with where I'm at now. I think I could use some more exercise, but I I think I told you I broke my collarbone a couple months back,
Right.
and that was hard with the baby because I had to be in a sling for 3 weeks. But it healed really good. I have movement, full range of motion, like I did before. Um, I broke my tailbone at the same time, but all that healed. I feel like it healed really quick, and like my emotion, everything's back. I don't have anything lasting from it. I don't have any pain from it anymore. But during that time, because I had the sling, it really irritated my neck, and I wasn't sleeping well. I was waking up all the time, just moving in bed and stuff. So I went a good probably 6 weeks of not sleeping well, but I'm even back to that again now. Like, going to sleep at 10 and waking up at 6, I can do that again. So
And when you wake up, you actually feel rested. It's not like
I
waking
do.
up like, "Oh, I've got to go and face the day now."
I actually feel rested. I'm actually able to, I still drink coffee. So I get up, I have my coffee, then I go downstairs and I have my breakfast, and then the baby comes, and then it's just on from there until he goes home again. But yeah, I don't have any problems getting out of bed or feel like I need more sleep. Um, I, I think there's some days when it's been a long week that I might be like, man, I'm ready for the break. But like, because the schedule changes, so some days we go 6 days straight, and after those weeks, the next day I'm kind of, I think I just sit around more, not sleepy, just sit around more and relax. But I think, especially if you feel like there's something wrong with you and you don't know what it is, at least do carnivore as an elimination diet. Because it's amazing the things you figure out when it comes to food, the things that affect you that I never would have thought. Being a vegetarian, I ate nuts and cheese for protein. My body doesn't handle nuts and cheese, and I didn't realize that at the time. So I think that's important. Just knowing what food's going to affect you and what food's not going to affect you is a big part of it.
Mm.
I am on my normal eating. Sometimes I'll get lettuce and I'll wrap it around my hamburger patties and I'll eat it. Not every time, but sometimes. Sometimes I just eat them with bacon. Um, Sometimes I'll add a little mustard. My body really doesn't like mustard, but I can get away with it one time. Um, but as far as anything else, I just now, this far into it, cannot picture. I woke up a couple weeks ago. I was dreaming about eating Mexican food. There is nothing in Mexican food I could eat, but I was dreaming about eating it. Now, that day when I thought about it, it's like, there's not one thing that I could eat that wouldn't make me miserable, and I just don't want to feel it. So I think I'm past the missing that kind of food. So,
I think one of the things that's really, really important for people to realize, from what you're saying is like, if you're not feeling good, it's not normal. And you should try and work out what it is that you're doing to yourself that is making you feel so bad. Whether that's you're not sleeping enough or it's some kind of reaction to the food that you're eating, whether it be dairy or nuts or something with ultra processed food, right? It's like when you mention looking after your grandson, um, like when my daughter was born, I remember like I don't know when she's about a year old or something, she want to play, or 2 years old, she want to play, and she like kind of rough housing, throwing teddies at each other or something like that. And I would be lying on the ground, like just wanting to sleep. And she'd be like, come on, let's play, play. And I'm just like lie on the ground going, no, I just, give me 5 minutes, you know? And that's not normal.
right,
We
right.
need to like rather than going, "Oh, I'm just getting old," or that's just me. I lost the genetic lottery. We should be thinking, what are we doing to ourselves that's making us feel that way?
We should. And it's amazing how many people don't. I know, like, my symptoms started slowly and just progressed, but I was sensitive to light. I was sensitive to sound. Um, I couldn't have any loud sound. My house is always dark. Um, just little things would start, and I couldn't put a finger on what it was. Like, all of a sudden, I developed this, and I don't know why. And then I see people, I joined Facebook groups, and I can go on a Facebook group right now, like a Hashimoto's one, and there'll be people in there saying, I just don't know why I'm not getting better. Like, I'm taking levothyroxine, or my antibodies are getting worse. And some people will say, cut out gluten. And they'll say, I did. Well, I cut out gluten first too. But what I did was I went to gluten free food, processed boxed food. And they just add sugar to make up for the gluten, basically. So they don't get, like, it's not just going gluten free, it's removing the foods. And then my doctor told me, if you need to be gluten free, you need to be corn free, potato free, and rice free too, because your body will react to all of those the same. I never knew that. And every day I see it in those groups. People like, I don't get it. I went gluten free. Like, that's the beat all, end all, beat all to it. And I don't go on there and comment because I would be commenting on like 5 posts a day. But I hope people will come on YouTube and watch shows like yours and realize that there's so much more to it than just going gluten free. And gluten free out of a box is not any better. You're just not getting the gluten. And it took me a while with the gluten at first because I wasn't sure. Going keto is what made me realize, once I went off keto, is when I realized gluten was the problem, starting with that anyway. But even then, I didn't cut out rice and corn and all that. It was my functional medicine doctor that told me they're all related. And there's a ton of information on YouTube with carnivore that I just wish people would do. And I do see in those groups where people will post, Go look up Dr. Ken Berry. Like they'll post people's names to go look on YouTube. Whether they do or not, I don't know. But it's definitely crazy how bad food affects so many people.
Yeah, and it's when you realize that that's the case, it kind of becomes irritating to think that all the food companies get away with producing food that makes people feel so bad because people just blame themselves or blame their genetics or whatever. And it's just, oh, well, this is just me. I need to sleep a lot. I'm always tired. And we should be going, it's the ultra processed food, it's the gluten, it's all these things.
There is too, like I had a family member over last weekend and she's insulin dependent diabetic. And she's in her 40s. She's not like older, but she's been diabetic since her late 20s. And she was telling me like what she eats in a day. We were talking about coffee, and she said, "Coffee raises my blood sugar." I said, "Really? What do you put in it?" She said, "No, I just drink it black." I go, "And it raises your blood sugar?" And she said, "Yeah." So then she proceeds to tell me every morning she makes a bagel and has it with her coffee to take her medicine. And I went, "Don't you think the bagel might be it?" And she said, "I like to eat what I like to eat." And because I said, if you eat a hard boiled egg instead of a bagel, it won't raise your blood sugar. And she said, I like to eat. I have it under control with the insulin and I like to eat. And I just said, okay, I like to get out of bed. So I eat the way I eat. But, I'm not going to argue with her. It's her life, her body, her choice. But it's just funny that the coffee raises her blood sugar, but she's eating a bagel with it and not putting it together.
Well, I mean, that story reminds me of, how red meat causes diabetes. Well, probably not. It's the stuff you're eating with the red meat that causes the diabetes.
So in June, my sister was in the hospital and I flew out there. And she had this nurse. He was an awesome nurse. And I noticed he had a glucose monitor on his arm. And we got to talking. So I mentioned it. Are you wearing it just to check your blood sugar? Because a lot of people do that now. Or do you need it? And he said, no, I'm type 1 diabetic. And I said, oh, okay. He said, so I have to be vegetarian. And I said, I'm carnivore. He goes, oh, I support that. I can't do that because of ketoacidosis. This was a nurse. Now I'm there for my sister, so I'm not going to have a full debate with this nurse about vegetarian versus carnivore. Plus, he went to medical school and I didn't. But it just blows my mind that, like they get something in their head, they don't look further either. Um, but I will tell you, my sister had rheumatoid arthritis. And I kept telling her, Lori, you got to try this. And she's like, I just can't eat like that. And I said, okay. So it was a year ago, October, I went out there to visit and she saw the difference in me, my weight, everything. And was just coming from her rheumatologist. And she's crying that they prescribed her this. It's like a cancer drug and it's a steroid and an immunosuppressant, the two medications. And they said, your rheumatoid arthritis is so bad at the point now where you have to take these medications. Because she had put off taking them for a year. She didn't want to. And so then she said, looking at you, like it's one thing to hear it on the phone, how you feel and how you are, but to see you, I think I'm going to try this. I said, just try it for 30 days. So that was October last year. June is when she was in the hospital. And they thought it was related to her rheumatoid arthritis. But when they ran the blood work, the rheumatologist came in and said, you have no RA antibodies anymore. You're in full remission. Like 6 months. 6 months. And she's had it, we were in our 20s. So she'd had it for 30 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's just gone.
And so she's, other than in the hospital where they feed you all this crappy food, she she's back to carnivore. So she's stuck with it. And it's funny because her kids were giving her a hard time over it, over eating it. And then once she was in the hospital and they're like, your RA is in remission, her kids can, like, oh, okay, maybe it does work. So,
Wow.
um,
It's kind of when you think about the hospital situation, it's kind of a funny story, like the doctor says, "You've got no RA antibodies anymore. Now have your hospital food, and we'll try and fix that problem."
it's crazy because it's like a bowl of fruit and a pudding cup, and I don't remember what else, but she was actually in two different hospitals. They transferred her to Loma Linda. Okay, right? So she's in Loma Linda, and she ended up getting a, I don't know if you know what Guillain-Barré is, but it's a acute onset autoimmune. And she got something called Miller-Fisher, which is a part of that, because her body was fighting a virus, and instead of the virus, it started fighting itself again. So the RA is gone, but she gets this acute autoimmune. But they don't know what it is at the time. They're running all these tests. They send her to Loma Linda. And because they had already told her the RA was in remission, when she got to Loma Linda, she was doing physical therapy and stuff. And she told every doctor she saw there that she was carnivore. The nutritionist lady came in and said, if you're a carnivore, just eat the hamburger patty. Like, we don't have a special menu, but you can just remove everything and just eat the hamburger. They weren't pushing her to eat anything else. And two of her physical therapists were carnivore. Yeah. So, and I've heard a lot about Loma Linda, but yeah.
I thought you were gonna say something like they came in, they're attacking her with carrots or something.
No, they were really good about it. I was surprised. But I know her rheumatologist, when she was in the hospital, I told her, you don't have to tell everybody about carnivore because the doctors might look at you and say, that's your problem right there. Once they told her her RA was in remission, then she was like, oh, let me tell you why. So then she started talking about it because they couldn't argue with that. She's had it for 30 years. So, um, that was good. I'm glad she stuck with it. I'm glad she's just like me. She's not crying in bed with nerve pain and muscle pain and all that anymore. Um, Same thing. She could sleep all night. She's up busy all day. Like, it was all the same thing as me, which we have a lot of similarities anyway. Um, so I will, when people ask me, I will tell them. And my family knows I eat this way. And if they want to eat this way, I'm not going to push it, but they know the difference in me. And um, with my sister, that worked out great because she saw me when I was better. And that was the same time when she was really at her worst. So that worked out good for her. And now she's full on carnivore, doesn't want to go back to any of that either. So I'm happy
Nice.
she, yeah.
So what's your husband's reaction to it been? Like there was those moments where he thought he was gonna have to, store your trailer and go back and pick it up and all that kind of thing. And you've done a complete 180 since then. So what's his feeling?
Oh, he's happy. He's happy I'm not just laying in bed sleeping all the time. There was times where he would come home and I have been asleep since he left. Like, he'd be gone for hours and come back and I was still asleep. So he really saw me going downhill. Um, and then he sees me now, where I don't have to take a nap. Um, and with my grandson and all that stuff. He, so my husband has blepharospasm. It's a form of dystonia that affects your eyes, where his brain tells his eyes to close all the time. And it could last for seconds to minutes to days to weeks. He hasn't progressed to that yet. Right now, it's more seconds. And the only treatment for that is Botox in the muscles or surgery. And I tried to get him to try carnivore to see if it helped that, but he's never been a meat eater his whole life. He's like, if he has a choice, he'll take chicken before he'll take meat. And he's done, like, I did juice fasting. He did keto with me. He did juice fasting with me. So I would go to do something. He would say, oh, I'll do it too. Not one time has he ever said, I'll do carnivore too. I think he still freaks out over the cholesterol part of it. He's more old school with no, it's going to make my cholesterol go up. Because he still does like olive oil and that kind of stuff. Where I have a whole thing of bacon grease sitting there, he'll reach for the olive oil. So he's happy for me, but he's not interested in doing it for himself. Two, because there's not evidence yet that it would help. I think if there was 100%, like people have the same thing and they did carnivore and it changed, I think he'd be more interested. But because there's just not, he's just not. So it's kind of flipped now where he's slowed down and I have more energy because he can't see all the time. So it kind of keeps him from being as active as he normally would. So we've kind of flipped positions now. So.
Yeah, I've got a couple of dystonia interviews that I'll share with you afterwards, if that helps at all. If you want to share that with him.
So I saw one of yours where it's an older lady and it's in her neck. And she
Right.
was talking about how she could actually keep it up and she didn't need her shots anymore. And I showed that interview to my husband. So if you have another one besides her, then that would be great. But I haven't seen anybody with it in their eyes. I don't think it should matter because it's still the brain. It comes from the brain. Um, but definitely the more information that's out there, the better, because, he's not going to be convinced otherwise. He's going to end up getting a surgery to sever muscles, and he gets the Botox every 3 months and they last about 6 weeks. So he goes 6 weeks of just miserable. Like, it's not just that he can't keep his eyes open, it's that the eyelids turn in a little bit and the eyelashes poke him in the eyes. So they have to remove the eyelashes. Yeah, it's bad. So, like now, so we moved from California to Kansas. It's like 2,200 miles, right? That's why it takes us 3 days. We wouldn't be able to drive back now. He wouldn't be able to drive back now. It would be me worried about, can he make it? So it really has flipped. Um, so we stopped traveling, all that. His has been progressing for a while too. He just didn't know what it was before. Um, but yeah, he's definitely happy for me that I can sleep all night. Before I would sleep 2 hours and wake up and be up for a couple hours in the middle of the night and then I'd fall back asleep. And it was just this, I never got a steady night's sleep. I was never comfortable. Something always hurt. I mean, I'm sure he was tired of hearing that because it was one day it's my nerves, one day it's my muscles. I would get to the point where I would tell him, it feels like my muscles are literally ripping off my bones. That's how miserable I was. And I never get that anymore. Never. My feet, the neuropathy was so bad. I couldn't ice it. I couldn't put heat on it because it's nerve pain and it would irritate it more either way. So there's nothing I could do. And I never get any of that anymore. And I think it was pretty quick that most of that went away. I want to say within the first, every day better and better, but 100% within the first 3 months, everything was better. All my blood work, everything was better just in the 3 months. And I felt better before that. I just have the blood work 3 months apart to see it. But I think the change was really quick for a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So there's no going back.
No, not that there's not some times where I don't wish that I could eat certain things, but really once it comes in my brain and I think about how it would go through my body, that's enough for me to say no. Like, I don't want to be doubled over in pain. I don't want to. And I know some people say if you stay off of it long enough, your body may not react to it negatively again. But even if I don't get histamine reactions, I just can't picture fiber going through my digestive tract ever again, you know? And I could never eat a box of something. And there are times where I think, oh, yeah, maybe I could, but I really don't have the desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also once you've had enough distance that from the ultra processed foods and stuff, it gets easier and easier to kind of take a moment when you feel a craving coming on and just kind of go, it's just not worth it. That 1 second of pleasure in my mouth is just not worth all the consequences.
That and two, I think we remember things better than they were. And I don't think the food's going to taste as good as I remember it tasting. I so you're not going to get that good taste that you used to get. And then I know I will physically feel it go through my whole body and just be so miserable that I gave into that. I don't have like the cravings. I have the thoughts, like the dreaming about Mexican food. And then I wake up and I'm like, okay, I can't eat tortillas. I can't eat cheese. I can't eat beans. Can't eat rice. So if I were to put all that together in my body at the same time, I don't know how long it would take for me to recover from that. And I just don't want 2 or 3 days of laying in bed being miserable because I did that to myself. So it definitely is. You get the thoughts, but once you could really think it through of is it worth it? It never is so far. Like I don't and I do get bored sometimes because I limit what I eat on carnivore. I'm not like a seafood or a chicken or a pork person other than bacon. So it really is bacon, eggs, and steak, with the occasional, like I said, brisket. Now, oh, hamburger meat. I do hamburger meat too, just not as often. And I can't really eat out because I never know what that food has touched or what they could. I don't want to get gluten on accident, that's for sure. But there is a couple fast food places that if I'm traveling, I could get away with. Like when I flew out to see my sister, I got stuck at the airport for hours because the planes were never on time. And I found a place that had hard boiled eggs. And then later I found a barbecue place that had brisket that didn't have gluten seasoning in it. So I managed to get through all that because that's when I have the hardest time is traveling and trying to find like what am I going to eat in a hurry. But other than that, yeah, I don't have the desire really. I have the thoughts and I think it through and it's not worth it to me.
Mm.
And I think more people would realize it if they would cut all that stuff out of their diet. It could be one thing that's bothering them, just one food item, but you'll never know until you remove them.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that I did and that
Mm.
I kind of was familiar enough to think back to like, oh, let me try this carnivore thing. Because it really was just, I had heard it in passing when I was keto. I think it was Dr. Berry and a few of those that were, I thought they were just restricting carbs more at the time. It wasn't promoted as a health thing that I could remember until I went back and said, oh, let me look up these people I used to watch. And then I was like, oh, it's like a health thing. And my functional medicine doctor said to me one day, she said, so you're basically carnivore? And I said, basically. And she said, I'm okay with that as long as you get your electrolytes. So, yeah. So even functional medicine doctors are open to it. And
Yeah,
I think that
I like the idea of functional medicine doctors because they're looking at the whole picture. They're not just looking at the one thing, you know. Oh, you got a headache, you need aspirin or whatever, you know. Yeah.
I remember because we were always raised going to the chiropractor as opposed to a medical doctor when it was suited for that. And I remember we had this family chiropractor, and he used to say a headache is not a symptom of a lack of aspirin. Like, That's not, and it would be like drink more water or go lay down. It'll go away. The first sign of dehydration is a headache. Maybe you're not drinking enough water. So he was one of those more natural. And he used to do demonstrations on my grandma, like with a sugar packet, hold it in one hand, and that hand's actually weaker just by holding it in your hand. You don't even have to eat it. And my grandma used to say, I have a problem with white flour. I don't think gluten was talked about back then. And she passed a long time ago, but she knew something about white flour she had an issue with. So I think she was a little before her time on that stuff. And she had a goiter on her um, thyroid. She had a goiter on her thyroid. She had to have it removed. My mom had her thyroid nuked. Um, yeah. And thyroid runs in my whole family. So now I think back to, is it Hashimoto's that's underlying all that? Or some kind of autoimmune, because I think we're all prone to it. I think it comes from my family. My mom's kind of beyond the point of, she's Alzheimer's, so she's kind of beyond the point of saying, hey, mom, try this carnivore diet. But me and my sister, for sure, you know, and, but we were raised like, let's go to the chiropractor instead of the medical doctor. And it was, I think my house, we only had aspirin. We didn't have all these pain meds we have now. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, nobody ever says, what are you eating?
No.
And I don't remember who said it, but when you take your animal to the vet, the first thing they ask you, what are you feeding it? Like, no doctor ever asks you, what are you eating? But you go to the vet, what are you feeding this dog? Cat, whatever. Even my husband had to take ours and he had to text me, what dog food brand does she eat? Because they want to know what she's eating. And that's just crazy that they don't ask us.
Yeah.
Man.
So if someone new came to you and said, "Okay, I'm gonna try carnivore, tell me what to do," what advice or tips would you give them?
So I went carnivore immediately because I was so sick. I was afraid to eat anything but steak. I didn't even eat eggs at first or bacon because my doctor wanted me to cut out eggs to make sure those weren't affecting me and pork. So I just went steak. And then um, because I was already into it, then I would add back the eggs and the bacon. I would tell people if you could do it that way, do it. I don't know if I could have done it that way if I had a choice. But if not, do it slowly. Start removing stuff out of your diet until you compare down to that. Maybe go keto first and then carnivore, whatever's easier for you. I am kind of like an all or nothing person. Like I know, like when I was trying to get off gluten, I would go really good for a couple months, and then I would eat one thing gluten, and then I'd be like, "Well, I already blew it, so let me just finish the muffins." And so I am kind of all or nothing. I can't. So it was better for me just to cut it all out. Um, but some people it's not. And I know, do you want to feel bad for a few days while it's getting out of your system? Do you want to do the oxalate dumping? Like there's a lot of things that can throw you off thinking something's wrong with you when you're detoxing from stuff. So as long as you know that going in, I would just say shut it off right away. Um, and if you can't, then ease into it. Do keto. Um, just start removing stuff from your diet. Remove gluten, and then kind of just progress from there. Because you'll definitely feel a difference just removing things too. But you're never going to know what's affecting you until you remove all of it. Once you remove all of it and you're just eating carnivore and you're feeling better, you're probably going to stick to it, or at least high fat, high protein, even if you add back some carbs. The I would just do it. I mean, you don't. My sister did. I was surprised. She just did it. Like, okay, I'm starting it. Got rid of everything, went carnivore, and it worked out for her. She never had any real bad symptoms or anything of detoxing from the foods. I know I had quit coffee for like 3 months, and my functional medicine doctor was like, "Don't quit tomorrow. Like, drink a half a cup, drink a quarter cup, like wean down." So there's some things like caffeine and stuff. You want to get off those, I would take a little slower, just so you don't get the headaches. But yeah,
N
I would say just do it. You got nothing to lose. Try it. See how you
nice.
feel.
No
Especially with autoimmune. I just
yeah,
think so many people have autoimmune, and if you don't know you have it, but you think you might, and you can't get tested because your doctor won't do it, just try it. It's the only thing I've ever seen or heard that can fix antibodies to where your body stops attacking itself. And that's the main thing.
yeah. Nice. So Danielle, if is there any way people can reach out to you?
I mean, they could. I'm really bad at social media. I have my Facebook. It's Danielle Brooks Graychick. Um, and they can reach out to me on Messenger through there. Because other than that, I don't really check my emails, and I'm just not big on social media. I have them, but I'm not on there very often. So yeah,
Yeah, no worries. I'll link to your Facebook in the show notes. Danielle, thanks for coming back on and letting us know how things are going. I really appreciate your time.
yeah. Anytime you want to check in again, just reach out.